Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast, Finding Your Flow. I'm so excited to have you here. So, I want to welcome you to our new season of this transformational podcast, and it's called My Intuition Made Me Do It. I'm your host, Jennifer Jane Young, and I'm here to ignite inspiration within you. I'm the author of Say Yes to Your Yes, How to Trust Your Gut and Take the Leap, and the visionary behind the School of Intuitive Leadership. I've dedicated my life to empowering individuals to trust their intuition and lead their lives from that powerful inner wisdom. Through my work as an international speaker and intuitive leadership advisor, I've witnessed the transformative power of following one's intuition firsthand with entrepreneurs and organizations around the world. This season, we're diving deep into the stories of people who dared to listen to their inner voice and take the leap. Join us as we unravel the mysteries of intuition, sharing captivating experiences that will reignite your belief in the incredible guidance within you. Get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. It's time to embrace the clarity and courage that comes from trusting your intuition. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired into action. Your dreams are waiting. Let's make them a reality together. Okay. So, Karen, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. And like I was saying before, very emotional about you sharing your story because it is a story that I have experienced in my life, a story that I don't think I'm finished with either, which I know you can probably understand.
Yeah.
And I love how we were brought together by a very special friend of mine, Oscar, who was fixing your car and was like, "Oh my God, you need to meet Jen." So our paths came together recently, and I really feel like they did on purpose. So if I'm gonna go right in, the first
Yeah.
question is like the season is My Intuition Made Me Do It. So please tell us, what did your intuition make you do?
Well, it's an honor to be here and to talk to you about my story. And I think Oscar's intuition told him to introduce us. And yeah,
Totally.
and that's why we're here today. So my intuition told me to buy a house in a small community outside of Cancun called Puerto Morelos in Mexico. And 2 years ago, coming out of the pandemic, I was down visiting. It's a wonderful spiritual community that I've led a lot of retreats to. And I was walking on the beach one day, and a woman had seen me at dinner the night before with a friend of hers, and our dogs were playing on the beach. And just out of the blue, she's like, "Have you ever thought about buying a house here?" And I was like, "Yes." And I'm like, "What am I saying?" I was like, "Yes." And she's like, "Oh, great. A friend of mine looked at a house yesterday. It's not for her, but it's really great shape. It's only available to friends and family. Oh, here's the realtor, get in touch." And it was 2 days before I was leaving. And I couldn't get into the house, but I saw it from the exterior and fell in love with the neighborhood and the exterior of the house. And I just knew it was my house.
Yeah.
And my realtor loves to tell this story that so I never met him in person. I did a virtual tour of the house online and just did everything with him. I was here in Boston, he was in Mexico. So when I finally met him 6, 7 months later to start he gave me the keys and he's like, "I don't know who you are, but this was the easiest closing I have ever done in Mexico." And
Wow.
I'm like, "It was meant to be." And I just kept saying that the whole time. Like, if this is meant to be, it'll happen. If this is meant to be, it'll happen. And my intuition just kept saying, "Yeah, girl, go, girl. It's all good. It's all good." And it was just like so easy and clear.
Oh,
And it happened. And now I own this beautiful house in Mexico and just returned from being there for 6 solid months.
right. So we were doing a little mini therapy session before
Yeah.
because you're adapting to the energy back in the US, which I
Yeah.
totally understand as well.
Yeah.
Um, I love how easy and seamless that whole path was. And, what I often tell people is when you follow your intuition, you're essentially just getting on the path of least resistance. Like you said, it's just like everything flows so easily. You don't need to push anything forward. You no need to force anything forward. You can just kind of flow forward with the guidance of your intuition. So um, I love, love, love how easy that was. And um, I'm curious, why do you think your intuition led you to live in Mexico?
Puerto Morelos and that community is such a special place. And I feel so at home there. Like from the minute I went, I think my first retreat was there in 2017. And I'd been to the peninsula before, to Playa and Tulum and into other areas, but I'd never been to Puerto Morelos. So I showed up with my co-leader the day before the retreat to get a little bit settled. And I just felt like I was at home. It
Mm,
was just the energy of the earth, just it. Another place I consider home is like California. I was born there, and I feel like when I'm in California, like there
mm,
was no resistance. It was just this warm, it was like welcome, welcome here, welcome home.
mm,
And and I set an intention like out loud, like, one day, like, oh, one day I'm going to own a house here, kind of kidding. But I think, that setting that intention in 2017 then led to me buying a house there in 2022. So I believe, the Mayans settled there for a reason. There's
mhm,
a real specialness to that land. There's energy vortexes there with the cenotes. There's a real power and healing in that area. And I was really drawn to all of that energy. And then
mm,
because of that, the town is filled with beautiful people that are a lot of wonderful healers that are women.
yeah.
And I just started meeting them and felt so welcomed by them into the community, welcomed by everyone into the community. Never had
Mm,
any resistance, any problems there, just filled with so much love and welcomeness. And it's just felt like home from the beginning.
It's
Yeah.
reflecting back, I think, a lot of what is inside of you also, because that's the energy that I've felt ever since I met you, like that warmth and welcoming and kind, embracing energy. So, and I'd be really curious. I recently dug into astrocartography, and it's really fascinating. I'd be really curious. Maybe we need to do this after the podcast to see what yours is, because essentially it's like based on your birth date and your birth time, like your full astrology. You get the
Mm-hmm.
map of the world and all of these lines going through the world, and then each line is related to a planet, which is related to something. For example, I think Pluto is related to transformation, if I'm not mistaken. My Pluto line goes right through Cancun.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, and that's where I experienced the most massive internal transformation I've ever experienced in my life,
Mm-hmm.
was my chapter in Mexico. So I'm like, we need to go check this after, because I'm curious about which of your lines, if some are going through there, because um, I really believe that when we're pulled to go somewhere in our life, there's a purpose behind that, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so excited about this new chapter for you. Um, I'm curious also, like, what would you say is the most important lesson that you learned, and like trusting this gut feeling and doing the thing, like taking the leap and buying the house?
That's such a funny question you asked me that because I wrote my blog yesterday
Yeah.
uh, for my website, and last year I did one lessons I've learned living in Mexico, and the one I wrote yesterday was part two, lessons I've learned part two.
Okay.
And I think, sometimes it's not, it's not easy living in Mexico, just like it's not easy living anywhere. But
Mhm.
you're learning a new culture. I am learning the language. I want to be fluent in Spanish. So I just had Spanish lesson. I have Spanish lessons every morning.
Nice.
You're learning a new language, you're learning a culture, and you're learning how to, build and grow a new community as a foreigner. And and sometimes there's a lot of challenges that come with that. And I always like to take my challenges, like when I'm really feeling, tense and challenged, it's like how to soften around this, and how like what is the universe trying to tell me right now? Like what is
Mhm.
going on here? What is the lesson here? And sometimes I think buying the house in Mexico and living there was the craziest thing I've ever done. And some days I'm like, this is the smartest or the best thing I've ever done. So I do definitely have still some friction around it, but I know, in order for us to grow, we're going to have that friction. And,
Mhm.
and I know that, and I just need to sit like, well, this is really, and say to myself, this is really difficult right now, and that's okay, because it's
Yeah.
just temporary. It's just a temporary moment, and I know I'm growing from it. I'm learning from it,
Mhm.
and it's just a part of my growth and evolution in this next chapter in my life. And
Mm.
my intuition is always holding that space for me and providing me support
Yeah.
in that growth.
Yeah, because it's always going to lead us to just that one next step that we need to take, right? And we don't need to know any more than that, really. There's no point really knowing more than that because just life shifts as we move through life. And
Right.
I think, one of the most important things that you said in all of this is how you've learned to soften around the friction because intuition always leads us through growth, always, always, always. And that growth is uncomfortable. It's the contraction before the expansion. It's the caterpillar to butterfly process, right? So, like that moment when the caterpillar turns to mush, it has no other option but to soften in order to become that butterfly. And if you resist, like if you meet if you meet not the resistance, if you meet the friction with more tension, that's when you start to suffer, right? As you move
Right.
through a chapter of your life. So, um, and I love how this decision felt like the craziest thing ever and the best thing ever that you've ever done. And that's often what it feels like when we trust our gut. It's like, oh my God, this feels absolutely insane. And then the after is like, wow, this is so perfectly aligned for me. So when we're looking for comfort and guarantees as we follow our intuition, we're not going to be following our intuition.
Right.
So we got to be paying attention to like, okay, what feels scary and uncomfortable, and that's usually the way forward.
Right. And
Yeah,
I think the real friction, I don't know, I call the voices in my head the gremlins.
yeah,
And so the real friction can be when my gremlins are getting really loud,
yeah,
and they're like, because gremlins want to keep us small, right? That's their whole job.
mhm,
They want to keep me in Boston. They want to keep my world really small because to them that's safe. So
yeah,
when I'm in Mexico and I'm, doing new things and trying new things and really pushing myself out of my comfort zone, they start getting really loud.
yeah,
And then the friction is my strong intuition is telling me it's okay. And so it's like friction between gremlins and intuition.
yeah.
And so
Love it.
I really learned how to more deeply work with my gremlins these past few months because they got really loud a few times. And
Yeah,
and I'm like, I even met with my realtor. I'm like, I'm just gonna go meet with my realtor and and see what it would look like to put this house on the market.
yeah,
And and then I softened and slowed down, and and checked in and listened. And my intuition was like, not yet. You're still learning
Mm.
and growing. Like, not yet. Not yet.
Mm.
Just
I
not yet.
love how you are very gentle and patient with your intuition. There's like no sense of rush, no sense of urgency. I really think that the one of the most important things we need to get rid of as human beings is like this FOMO feeling, this fear of missing out.
Hmm.
I don't think we can miss out on what's meant for us if we can just be patient and gentle with the process. Life will always realign us with where we're supposed to be. So I think
But
that's really
that's
great.
so, yes, but that's so hard for everyone, right? Particularly
Yeah,
now with technology.
yeah,
It's, we're so stimulated on the phones and on social
yeah,
media and seeing what everyone's doing, and then that releases the endorphins, and then that just gets us
yeah.
kind of all cranked up and jacked up. And and I teach my clients a tool called Stop. Stop what you're doing. T, take 10 deep breaths.
Mm,
O, observe your thoughts and feelings. Just do a little check-in. Like what's going
yeah,
on?
yeah.
And P, proceed with awareness. Because
Mm,
we get so caught up and then we're constantly reacting to things and we're
yeah.
not responding. So I reacted to things and I went and saw my realtor, and he handed me a contract, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna sit on this and think about this. And then and like he's like, we'll have it sold by the end of the summer. And I was like, yeah. And so got home, went to the beach with my dog, and just was like, all right, girl, slow
Yeah,
down, sit on the beach, connect with nature, and just do a big check-in here. And who's
mm,
driving this right now? Oh, you damn gremlins, you're driving
yeah.
this right now.
Right. I know, right? Our ego that's like tricking us into thinking that it's the wise one leading us forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I miss the ocean so much because it's so good to go to the ocean. Like the vastness of the space that we have in front of us when we're sitting at the ocean is so therapeutic. And my version of the ocean now is an apple tree,
Yeah.
like my best friend right now. So when I'm in that state of like urgency and intensity, I just go up and walk to the apple tree, take some breaths, and come back. And there's definitely so much magic that happens with like nature slows us down. And you're right, we're so overstimulated right now with everything.
Yeah.
And I've made it a practice in the morning. It's been probably a year now that I feel like I've been pretty consistent. Of as soon as I get up, I come sit down with my first warm beverage, and I'm not allowed to do anything until I meditate. Like I sit for 10 to 15 minutes and just meditate in silence. And then there's like that calm space that settles in because when I get up in the morning, I'm like ready to I love my business. I love my work. I'm like ready to jump in right away and I'm like, no, I have to reconnect to myself first because if not, it can get really tricky. You can think that your intuition is leading you forward, but it's actually like you said, those little gremlins that are
Mhm.
dressed up as intuition.
Right, right, right. I had the
Mm,
honor of leading a retreat, kind of
yeah,
going back to where I started in Puerto Morelos. I led a
yeah.
retreat 2 weeks before I left and I used to lead yoga retreats down there. It was kind of like yoga and drinking, but this I changed, right? Yeah, like we'd do hard practice twice a day and then hang out at the
Yeah,
beachfront all day. It was perfect.
yeah.
And but this one was called Manifest Your Life, Manifest in Mexico. So
Mm,
I just changed everything about it. And it was, because I manifested a life down there. And I'm like, if I wanted to teach others the gift of manifestation and listening to their intuition. And I had 10 beautiful souls show up and fall in love with Puerto Morelos just like I did. And we
oh,
went on this whole journey together for a week of temazcals and cacao ceremonies and discovery scuba diving, like they were facing their fears and really getting out of their comfort zone.
Mm.
And the last workshop I taught on Friday before they left on Saturday was like, now how do we integrate all of this? Like you've just been on
Yeah.
this incredible journey and you're going to go back home and be like, what the F just happened? And now what do I do?
Right.
And
Right.
so we talked a lot about the morning routine, building a shrine, whatever that means to them, taking 30 minutes for themselves to continue journaling, to set their intention for the day, to light an incense. Or we had beautiful candles from the cacao ceremony. I
Mm.
had them in one of their meditations come up with like a phrase or a mantra that would bring them back to that moment.
Mm.
And so everyone set up their kind of own individualized like integration plan. And then
Yeah.
this week I've been checking in with everyone to see how they're doing.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Our morning chunk is so precious, right? Like
Yeah.
if we can just get our first couple of hours in intentionally, even if the rest of the day is like stuff that maybe doesn't feel quite aligned right now or whatever's going on in the rest of the day, that little chapter in the morning, if we do it intentionally, can be really powerful. So I love that you did that for them for the integration. How beautiful.
Yeah. It was really special.
I'm curious now. Um, I often think about this question. I talk about it a lot on the podcast. And when I think about this question, it actually like terrifies me in a good way because it reminds me to keep trusting my gut. What would your life look like now, or who would Karen be now if you had not taken that leap? What do you think that would look like?
I I think, well, let's think about that for a minute. So last year when I went to Mexico, I went for 4 months. And then I had to make some decisions about Boston while I was gone. And so I was living in a community where my son was going to public schools and he was graduating from high school and going off to university. And so I made the decision to give up that current place of living.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure if I hadn't have been in Mexico surrounded by such beautiful energy, I'm not sure if I would have had like the strength to give up uh
Mm.
that that apartment and downsize and move, because I realized when I was down there last winter and my morning and sunset walks on the beach, I realized how important it was for me to be close to the water.
Mm.
So I moved to so I moved to the water in Boston. I downsized. I gave he always has a home with his father. And so
Hmm.
I gave up living with him and downsized so that I could move to the water and still be more in nature, even though I'm
Right.
in Boston. So I think if I hadn't had that time in Boston, I'd still be living in the city. I'd still be living
Mm.
in the city surrounded by that really powerful energy. And I wouldn't be happy. I would be like, what am I doing? I think
Mm.
I'd be a little bit stuck in what do I want to do next?
Mm.
I think it's really important for us when we know we want to make a change, when I think I'll leave it at that, when we know we want to make a change, is to get out of our habitat, like go on a trip, go travel, go somewhere, because we tend to see things more clearly when we're out of out of that location, out of that place. And then
Yeah.
we can start to tap into that intuition. Maybe it's maybe a little bit clouded when you're, and more of a negative energy. And when we get out and we're on vacation and we're traveling and when we're a happier place, I always find that my intuition gets to be louder and I can
Yeah.
tap into it more. So that 4 months in Mexico allowed me to see kind of my next phase in the Boston area a lot clearer.
Oh my God. I have like so many spinal chills right now as you're talking about this. When we're at home in our routine and in our habits, you're so like we are just drowning in our conditioning. We're
Yeah.
drowning in what we already know. We're drowning in, you know, maybe our nervous system being in its stress response. And like you said, it's like the window to hear our intuition is so tiny. And then I find when we go out and travel or go somewhere else, like you said, we wake up in a
Yeah.
big way. It's like we go from seeing like this to like opening up those blinders so wide. And I think this is so important. Like this is such an important piece to bring to the forefront of this conversation because, like you said, people they're like yearning for something, they're yearning for change, and the fear is to like take a step forward into the unknown. But that's exactly that's I wish I had my cup right now. Freedom's on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
Literally, it's that one step forward that's going to get you out of your habitual thinking and being, and even your habitual way of feeling, and wake you up to something um, brand new. And as much as we're like, a lot of people are scared of change, when you flip it around and you think about, like, imagine if life never changed, like that for me feels way more scary.
Oh
Like,
God.
how boring, like, would life be if it was a constant Groundhog Day? And that's what we end up creating very often when we get stuck in our habits. We create a life of Groundhog Days.
I get bored. I don't know about you, but I'm
I
like
know.
boring. Like, and
Yeah,
then I want to look and like cause trouble and like,
I know, right?
like maybe do
Oh,
something a little self-destructive. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like,
yeah. Oh, we got to look at your Strength Finder. Oh my God, have you ever done your Strength Finder?
I know of Strength Finder. I don't think I've ever taken it. I know
Oh,
some other coach friends of mine use that as part of their practice.
yeah, so my in my top five, I have adaptability. I'm sure you have that too. So adaptability is we have long periods of transition and very short periods of contentment. So when we get into that feeling of like boredom, we blow up our life or blow up our business or like
Yeah,
move to another country or like whatever
right.
that is. So really funny.
And
Um,
I'll also say, like, for folks that maybe can't travel or, you know, are are still feeling that place of stuckness, like
yeah.
even just going out on a walk, getting in nature, moving. When I coach, I always encourage my clients to be out in nature on a walk. And we do coaching on the phone because when they're walking and moving and in nature, things are
Mm,
starting to flow. And
yeah.
I'm like, I'll take all the notes and send them to you, but I want you out there breathing, moving, and in nature because just simply going on a walk can help get you unstuck, can just help move
Yeah.
things along so you can start to, because you're changing your perspective, so you can start to see things in a little different way. So maybe for our friends out there listening that aren't able to go on a big vacation or a big trip, if they can maybe just travel somewhere close by and go on a nice hike in nature, that can
Yeah.
really help to turn things up and release things.
Totally. I think it's important because sometimes we think in order to follow our intuition, we need to do these big, like drastic things in our lives. And sometimes it does look like that, but it doesn't always have to.
Right.
I know for me, when I'm like stuck in my thinking or frustrated with my business or something, if I just get up and go work from a coffee shop for half a day or a couple of hours,
Sure.
oh my God, it shifts my energy so, so much. And if you have nature close, definitely. It's just like I just watched this documentary called The Living World, and it
Mm.
talks about, have you watched that?
No, it's on my list.
Oh, you're gonna love it. Like nature person, you're gonna love this. And it's just how everything is interconnected in the world and like just how much magic there is in nature. Um, and it's the simplest thing for all of us to access, really.
It's free.
So it's free. Exactly. Exactly.
And I think that's also kind of the power of Puerto Morelos is you have the ocean and the jungle. So you have
Mm.
these two really, really different energies,
Yeah.
like right up and close to each other. So you can be, spend the morning on the ocean and then 10 minutes down the road, just be surrounded by the sounds and the energy of the jungle, which is so
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, the birds, everything there. I know it's so beautiful. It's so, so beautiful. The cenotes, they do have something very magical. And I actually never thought about this because I went before I left. I had gone swimming in a cenote. I think it was only the second time. When I came back from that day of swimming in that water, my nervous system, it was like a full reset. My nervous
Mm.
system was so calm. I actually couldn't remember the last time I felt so calm and at peace in my body. So I believe that there is some energy vortexes in there for sure.
Well, the
Yeah.
Mayans thought they were the pathways to the gods, and
Yeah.
they're all connected.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know. It's beautiful. Well, you essentially answered my last question, but I'm going to still bring it up in case there's something else that feels like that wants to come out. Like if someone's listening to you today and they're really relating to your story or just the way in which you kind of follow your own intuition, is there any other piece of wisdom that you would like to share with someone who's wanting to, really trust their inner knowing and take the leap and do the thing, whether it's similar to you, like moving somewhere else or something else? You have a little nugget of wisdom that you want to add.
Yeah. I, so I think as humans, we tend to get guided by one thing. So another tool I teach my clients is called holographic thinking. And
Okay.
so when you're faced with something, I say, okay, sit down and write out all of the facts, just the facts, because some of us are really driven like by factual things like lawyers. And when you're writing out the facts, like really stick to the facts, because the next piece of it is going to be, what are the emotions around this? Because some of us are really driven by our emotions.
Right.
So you have your facts, and you'll see when you're writing out the facts how your emotions get really caught up in there, and then list out the emotions. And then the third
Mm,
piece is, what is your intuition telling you? So to really, and some of us are guided by our intuitions much stronger. So you'll start to see what guides you the strongest. Are you real fact-based, emotion-based, or intuition? But when we're stuck, sometimes we can't hear any of that. And so when you start
hmm
to write it all out, I mean, usually once you get through the facts, it already becomes really clear what you need to do. And it's
Yeah.
holographic thinking is something we can do with everything.
Yeah.
And so it's a tool that all of my clients like, and I love to share with others, because you can really start to tap into that intuition.
Mm,
Once you've taken the facts and the emotions away, then what's left is your intuition shining with the answer. Because I really believe we know what to do inside of us. We just get clouded by all of
hmm
these other things, by our
Yeah.
gremlins and the shoulds and the coulds and the family and the judgment and social media, like all of that attachments and aversions, all of that clouds us. So by stripping that away, then our intuition can shine.
Yeah. I love that. And remembering that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, like our
Yeah,
soul, our intuition is literally the wisest thing we have access to. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh, so good, so good.
yeah.
I'm like thinking people are gonna want to know like when is her next retreat and when can I go? So I'd love to know, if someone really connected to you or your story today and want to learn more about you or the work that you do and potentially future retreat. I don't know if there's one in the pipelines. Where would be the best place for people to connect with you? And is there a retreat coming up?
Well, the retreat, we'll see. I'm just winding off of this one, and I'm waiting to see
Okay,
where my intuition guides me next.
right.
And folks can find me on my website, which is workwonder.today.
Okay. Awesome.
Workwonder.today, and you can always shoot me an email, and that is Karen@workwonder.today.
Okay, awesome. We're going to put it in the show notes so people can reach out
Yeah.
to you if they need. Um, It was so nice to have you, Karen. Like, I just felt like I went back in time and relived my whole experience of when I went to Mexico. And I'm really excited to go over and hang out with you over there as well on the beach
Yes.
and do some yoga in the morning and tequila in the afternoon because I'm a big tequila fan like you. I love it. I think we're gonna get along just great. Um, so thank you for coming to share your story. I'm so happy that Oscar connected us and he listened to
Mhm.
his intuition because I feel like there's a beautiful friendship growing here, and I can't wait to share your story with everybody.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's just been a real pleasure to be here and to speak with your audience and to see you and speak with you. I love that we share the magic of Mexico together.
I
And
know.
hopefully we can share it with others. Maybe you and I lead a retreat together next year. Come
Well, oh, we need to talk about that because
on. Yeah.
I'm working on like two retreats a year,
Yeah.
one in the fall here in Canada, and the one in the spring was going to be in Mexico. So
Right?
people, stay tuned because Karen and I might lead a retreat together in
Yes. Let's do
here.
it.
Okay, let's do it. I would love that. That would be awesome. Okay, so people, there might be a retreat coming next spring in Mexico.
Oh my God, it's gonna
Uh,
be amazing.
I know, right? Oh, okay. Now I'm excited. We need to stop this podcast so we can go into planning mode. Well, thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Hi, everyone. It's Jen and Karen. It's been a few months since we recorded the podcast, and we have some really exciting news to share.
Well, we did it. We decided to host a retreat this March called Find Your Flow in Mexico. And trust us, it's going to be epic.
This is exactly what happens when you trust your gut and take the leap.
Because you know what happens then? Magic. You get to meet incredible people, collaborations are born, and success flows in.
We can't wait for you to join us. Head over to jenniferjaneyoung.com/Mexico to read all about this incredible retreat that's coming up and save your spot because your name is on it and we can't wait to have you there.
Looking forward to seeing all of you in March in Mexico.
Okay, let's just take a moment to take in that story. My wish is that it inspires you into the aligned action that you are really ready for. You also don't have to do this alone. Just like my guests have shared about all the incredible people that have supported them along their journey, we are here for you too. If you're ready to up-level your personal leadership, take big leaps in your life, or take that next leap on your entrepreneurial journey, join us at the School of Intuitive Leadership or in the Flow Experience so that you can experience more ease, flow, joy, abundance, and live in your full brilliance and wake up each day to the life that you really want. Find out more at jenniferjaneyoung.com or at theschoolofintuitiveleadership.com. And participate in this movement with us by sharing an episode that deeply inspired you and leaving us a review. I can't wait to see you on the next episode.